Hi, my name is Milani Douglas, Director of Public Programs here at the National Museum of Women in the Arts. We are here for another episode of Fresh Take. Fresh Take is where we get a chance to interview artists that are a part of our different projects here. Today, we're here with Wanda Ramundi Ortiz, and we are going to talk about her process and also her involvement with reclamation. Wanda, tell us some more about yourself. I know you're in your wonderful studio, so give us some insight about your practice.
So, I consider myself a multimedia or interdisciplinary artist because I don't like to confine myself to one particular practice. I just feel like I feel like actually when I really talk about my art making, I consider myself a storyteller, and the artwork facilitates that narrative. My main work was coming. Because I was concerned about the erasure of my family story, specifically my mother and my father, because being the generation they come from and the way my mom was raised, she was not allowed to go to school or learn how to read or write. And so when that became a very big concern for me, that at my mother's passing, that she would be erased because she was not able to document her own story or document her presence. And so I kind of decided, well, if I become successful, then that if you remember me, then you get her. You know what I mean? You get to her. Like, that's a direct line. And so I started making these works that kind of started to that drew attention to the Puerto Rican story, to my story, to her story, my family story. I recognize that people go unseen, and I feel like who I am as a person is like, I see you. Like, I go in the classroom and I'm like, I'm always looking for I'm looking and I'm assessing and um, uh, looking and assessing and trying to establish balance and order. So like establish an equilibrium. So if someone isn't getting that much attention, I'm going to try to find a way to get to them. If I see that something in the curriculum is not being addressed, as kids are not seeing themselves reflected, well, then what do we got to do to reestablish and stabilize that so that everybody gets what they need? And the same thing in the studio. So who are the people that are not being talked to, or what are the stories that are not being told, and how can I use my studio practice to elevate that, to draw attention? And so all of this is this, what's the problem? What am I trying to get? What's the thing that's missing? And how do we reestablish that balance? And that is something that runs concurrent throughout how I move in the kitchen and the studio. And then the social issues, right? So I get invited to Habitable Spaces residency this year in February, and I'm in a sustainable art farm. And I realized, I don't know shit about gardening. and then I realized that I feel like now that I've got a regular job, I got a little bit of better money coming in. I feel like I kind of fell asleep at the wheel and kind of settled into the suburban life, middle-aged woman life, and went back down. Went back down to kind of like the ground level, hustling, working on this farm with these folks. Which was really eye-opening to me. And then I come back and then the world's exploded and this pandemic has gone crazy and people are acting wild because they don't have enough, they've hoarded toilet paper. And so it was this really interesting thing about going back to basics and realizing that I'm sitting on a home in a state where there's a lot of water and there's a lot of sun and there's soil. Duh, throw something in the ground, grow stuff, and that we're part of this big machine, right? And that, keeps everybody at work so they can go to the grocery store instead of using what's in front of them, which is their lawn or their backyard, if you happen to have that. And so all of these things is like going back to the problems. Well, like, you know what, I don't know how to do this, so let me learn. I don't know how to make these objects about hair politics, but let me learn. And so that's the recurring theme throughout everything that I do.